So we're going to get started right away because I hope you can appreciate we've got to shove a lot of stuff in a very short amount of time, and we want to make sure that we have time for questions at the end. And so to do that, we're going to ask that we reserve them. Um, but first and foremost, we want to really welcome you all here and thank you. This is a bucket list for us. Beth and I went to the ICSA conference back when it was in Fort Lee in New York. And at that time, the lawsuit had just been launched, and there was interest in people that were there and what we were doing. And we were really encouraged to, when it's all said and done, come back and present on what happened. So we kind of committed at a time to do that, the good, the bad, and the ugly, if we won, if we lost. And when we heard it was in Montreal, it was a no-brainer. We were going to come. So welcome, and thank you for being part of this with us.
Yes, thank you. So we'll just get, first of all, we have notes because we have terrible memories and we're nervous. So, just get started with a little backstory. Grenville Christian College was a private, elite boarding school in Canada, just 2 hours from here. And it advertised as an Anglican institution. Even the headmasters were priests, but Anglican priests. But in truth, it was a cult hiding in plain sight. We even duped the Anglicans, who thought that we were running an Anglican institution. So in 1970, when the school opened, I was the first staff baby born to staff members at the school.
Which I think is completely poetic for that she then became a representative plaintiff. It was kind of like the beginning of the end was there right from the beginning. But sorry.
No, it's fine. But when I was 3, our school was struggling financially, so we were looking for our leaders were looking for outside input and guidance, and they found these 2 women in Cape Cod who were running their own Christian community called the Community of Jesus. And they seemed to be the answer to all our problems. And they came in and started, oh yeah, there we go. Sorry, you better do that. They came in and basically took over the leadership of our staff. And under their influence, Grenville would become an institution of paranoia that brainwashed, abused, and terrorized its residents for decades. But from the outside, it appeared to be an elite, successful institution with a glowing reputation. We had patrons on our board who were from the highest levels of society and government. We had 3 lieutenant governors of Ontario, senators. We had a High Commissioner to Great Britain, and we had the Anglican Bishop of Ontario on our board of patrons. But none of them knew what was really going on behind the glowing facade. And the truth remained hidden until 2007, when the school had to close due to bankruptcy, at which point allegations of abuse exploded like a volcano online and in the media.
It was really like a perfect timing kind of thing because social media and Facebook had just started. And a lot of us had left Grenville and hadn't talked to anybody about it since then, and just kind of, it was there, it was gone. And so with Facebook, everyone started communicating, sharing their stories. They got onto FactNet, sharing their stories there as well. And by the time we got to the closing ceremony of the school, there was a lot of very upset students who were there but had organized, and we're talking with each other about where we go with this feeling, and really the feeling at the closing was, we need an apology. Like, we need an explanation to what happened to us. Like, there needs to be a proper apology. The headmaster at the time, who was also in collar as an Anglican priest, had been on the front page of the Globe and Mail, stating that the allegations of the former students were completely without foundation. And that was a real red rag to a bull.
It was a rally cry.
It was a rally cry. And so we were there kind of on last hope that there's going to be some explanation for that, because we knew he knew. Like, we were all in the room with him when people were being abused, and he was there. We knew that he knew what went on. So we were waiting for a substantive apology, and that never came. Like, there was an attempt at an apology, but it was so far off the mark. And that as well, I think, was the second. Like, if we'd had a proper apology, there wouldn't have been a lawsuit. And without it, the lawsuit really started the day after that closing.
Yeah. And so, spoiler alert, the lawsuit went on to become the first historical abuse case to win at trial in Canada. So here we are telling
Our story.
yeah. Um
So we need to make a disclaimer of sorts.
so we are not legal experts and we can't offer any legal advice.
Don't. And if we even like sound like we're hinting at that, just don't.
Yeah.
I go to a real lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay. But we are well acquainted with the challenges that cult survivors might have if they choose to go the route of the court system to hold their group accountable. So just a brief bit of our story, and I'm going to do my best to make this really short because I can tell a story. So I love that Beth has made this my picture for my kindergarten year. I went to Grenville for 2 years, kindergarten and grade 12. And my parents just put me in school. It was just a school in the area, sent me to the school. And as the year went on, I was becoming more and more aggressively, charismatically Christian. And my Roman Catholic parents weren't liking that. I was belting out the Hallelujah chorus as we were driving downtown, and my mom is very Scottish, so the windows were going up. And but more concerningly, I was waking up with nightmares telling them at 4 and 5 years old that I was a sinner and that the devil was going to get me and my soul was going to be committed to hell. So they quite rightly decided that this was probably not the right place for me and took me out. In grade 12, for other reasons, they decided that maybe a good place to go. They had heard the school had mellowed, and we were fed a whole bunch of lies by the school that I would be allowed to interact with my friends from home and call them and have them come and visit on family night, and none of that was true. So I entered the school and was hit with shock and awe because I'd also been interested in cults by luck before I got in. So when I got there, it didn't take me long to start piecing together what was happening with Grenville with things that I'd seen on like documentaries about Jonestown. And I was then terrified because I knew it was a cult and I was trying to protect myself and protect my friends. And it was just a really, really frightening year. When I got out that summer, I had a friend who'd been like me at the beginning. She'd been very, knew the school was a cult, thought it was crazy. She had been broken by them, and she had decided she was going to stay at the school and become a staff member and was phoning me repeatedly in the summer to make me come back and to the school. And I was terrified by that. So I had reached out then to InfoCult, and I spoke to Michael Kropfeld as a 17-year-old, and I told him all about my school, and I got, which I don't think any other Grenville student got, validation within months of leaving the school that it was actually a cult. And not only that, I was given a whole bunch of newspaper articles and information about the community of Jesus. And then I was on a mission. I was going to expose the school. So I was telling everybody and anyone I knew about it that it was a cult. I was warning people if parents were going to send them there, let them talk to me, I'm going to tell them. But it just wasn't time. I spoke to the press too, story got squashed. And it was very hard to do at that time. It wasn't the right time.
You were getting
I was getting there, but I did.
That was 1988 when she was doing So as I mentioned earlier, I was born there in the year that it opened, and I spent 3 decades as a staff kid and then as a staff. We staff kids were brought up to believe that if we left, we'd be going straight to hell, and all the same cult messaging that we're familiar with. So I didn't even consider leaving. That's a picture of us standing in our survival sleeping bags. We had to buy survival gear for the end times.
I was just saying as soon as I don't drink the Kool-Aid. It was funny because it was true.
Yeah. Yeah. So finally, long story short, I did find the courage to leave. And when I did leave, I knew nothing about it being a cult. I did not understand that it was abusive. I thought I was a black sheep in a white flock and that I was a failure. And I just couldn't, I was too unhappy and too demoralized and broken to stay. I didn't understand any of the truth of what had really happened to me. And so
so much so, like I remember at the beginning of the trial, Beth truly, she joined the trial and was saying to us, I don't know what I can contribute because I was never abused there.
Yeah, I didn't think I was.
Tell your story to the gym. Like, just tell your story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So when the school closed and all the abuse allegations came out, I started reading them like I couldn't I had a huge aha moment. And within months, I was in the steering committee and helping spearhead the lawsuit. But like she said, I didn't at that point understand that I had been abused. I could see other people's stories and I was appalled. But I had a lot I had a lot of unpacking to do and a lot of recovery to do. And it took until now, it's been almost 20 years. Well, no, it's been 18 years. So there's a lot more to my story. And luckily, I've published a memoir. So I don't have to tell you any more about it. So if you're interested, it's for sale. I'll be here all day today and tomorrow, and usually you'll find me upstairs. And if I'm not there, Jacqueline should be there. So, please stop by. All right, that's enough of
I
that.
love this picture. This is the picture of Beth and I on the very last day of the 5-week trial that we had in Toronto. And we're smiling because like we entered, we had no idea what the trial was going to be like. It was insane. Like it really could be a mini series and it would be actually entertaining. But we, at the end, were pretty sure that it had gone well. And that's what our smile was.
Yeah.
And we were also feeling that, you know, even if it didn't go well, there's going to be a transcript of this trial,
Yeah.
and then we can just publish that, right? So either way, we've got some evidence of what happened there, and we've got all the evidence, and so yeah, we were pretty happy.
Our stories were told, at least in public record.
And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Things we learned, because that there might be people thinking like maybe it's a good way to go, and we're just like things we wish we'd known at the beginning and things we learned in the process because we learned a lot.
Yeah.
So one of the most important things that you need to have is this real clear sense of purpose. You can imagine with a class of like over like 14 to 1800 people, there was a lot of stories and a lot of experiences. We got pulled together by the lawyers. Like after stories started coming in, they gathered a group that they thought could be a steering committee, and we all met in Toronto. So this is a picture of us looking a lot younger when we first met as a steering committee. And that's not the whole steering committee. There was about 20 of us at the beginning. And the lawyers spent some time with us then to really work with why are you doing this? And we kind of distilled it down to we needed the truth exposed. Like I had found FactNet by Googling Grenville Christian College and cult, which I used to do periodically, and suddenly it popped up, and that was new. But if you typed in Grenville Christian College on a Google search, you would be inundated with the propaganda about a wonderful place it was, and we needed to see that there was some balance to that. We also wanted to set the record straight. Mm-hmm. That whole thing of being on the front page of the Globe and Mail telling everyone that we were liars, what we were saying was without foundation. As a priest, that was appalling for us. We needed to set that record straight. And we also wanted people to have the validation that we had. A lot of the people on the steering committee were people who figured out that Grenville was a cult. And we wanted them to get the validation that I got from Michael when I was 17. It allowed me to tell my therapist when I went to them that I was in a cult. And so I got the kind of treatment I needed that because I could identify it. We wanted that for our peers, who a lot of them had no idea why they were as upset as they were about what was going on.
And we were told right from the outset, don't expect an apology. And that's really important because we actually, I don't know if she said this already, but we wouldn't have gone to the courts and the justice system if they had apologized and taken responsibility or any kind of accountability. That's all we wanted
out of ourselves.
Right. That's all we wanted. But they said, don't expect that. And I was asking the lawyer recently if she could clarify that. Just,
why couldn't we do
Yeah. So this is what she wrote to me, and I'll just read it. Most class action lawsuits don't go to court. Most end in a settlement, which is a compromise. Both sides give up something to gain something else. Typically, the thing plaintiffs give up at a settlement is holding the defendants liable. In other words, the defendants agree to settle the claim and pay some amount, but on the basis that they do not have to admit liability. Our case was different in the sense that before the final settlement, we obtained a trial decision and an appeal decision that stated Grenville was systemically negligent and a place that could cause harm to the students who attended. So although our final settlement had the typical no liability language, it didn't displace the findings of the courts. It's rare to have a trial decision like ours, though. Given we settled with insurance companies, receiving an apology was never an option or a possibility. So, we should clarify, the school went bankrupt, so we weren't getting money from the school. It was all insurance companies that were defending the school and had to do the payout in the end.
Yeah. So, you need to be patient. When I first started trying to get information out in 1988, it was like 19 years later before the story actually really started to break. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then, as I said, 18 years later, I woke up with the rest of the people who were hearing all the allegations. And then when we went to the lawyers, they said, well, if you go into this, it could take time. It could take up to maybe 5 years.
And like we were incensed at that. Like, oh, we're already all here. Like, oh my God. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, why does it take so long?
Yeah.
But they were assuming we were going to settle. We knew that the school wasn't going to settle. But it was 16 years from the beginning of when the closing happened until when the settlement, like the decision came through. And it's been another 2 years. So we're into year 18 now. But we're assured that this year, all the statements are in, and they're just working on the disbursement of the settlement. So we're told of the claim. So we're being told that will be finished by May 2026. So they're almost done. So no money yet. No money yet, and not
in about 6 months, we think. But anyway, have patience.
Yeah. And don't think it's going to be quick.
Yeah.
And this was something this was probably one of the most shocking things for us. You know, you need to understand that you're opening Pandora's box. And at the beginning, like we were like a large group of people and we thought we were opening our story. But, you know, anybody who went to Grenville Christian College, of course, all of their friends knew that. And then there was parents who sent their kids there. And so you were opening the Pandora's box, not only for yourself, but the people who were still there, the people who had just left. And the parents who had sent their children there, some of whom had never been told the stories by their children. And that comes with real consequence.
Yeah, so there was a lot of pushback. Many survivors didn't want to remember and didn't want to deny that it was bad. I personally lost 95% of my former friends and family and colleagues because they did not agree with me joining the lawsuit. And my brother, who is a monk at the Community of Jesus, he cut off communication with me, and my parents didn't support me joining. So it was a big price to pay.
And even my family, I was only there for 2 years, but the way my parents viewed it was, we sent you there, we realized it was a mistake both times, we took you out. Like what's the problem here? Why are you getting involved in it? And yeah, move on. And there's not the understanding of what actually happened and the impact wasn't there. And it's a point of contention to this day in my family. It's, you know, it's like they're not proud of me being here. Like it's not something that they would be happy about. But and
I was often surprised at how aggressively Grenville supporters would try to defend the school's reputation. I understood that not everyone felt they had been damaged or abused, especially prefects who were groomed and indoctrinated and rewarded by the leadership to be part of a spy network. They weren't about to admit their role. And it wasn't their fault. They were just doing what they had been taught to do. But they thought, many of them said Grenville was the best thing that ever happened to them. And they vigorously rejected our lawsuit ideas, our pursuit of law, of justice. And they made it very clear that they were angry. And this is just one of the quotes of many that were sent to us as representative plaintiffs. I mean, you can read it for yourself. It's pretty bad.
One of the things we didn't understand at the beginning, but something we understand now, is just the impact of trauma, and it's not always pretty, right? So it was really hard working with the class to help people understand that this, to me, is somebody screaming out that how badly they've been impacted, because a healthy person doesn't do this. So we had to realize that our class is our class. Everybody is part of the class, whether they are happy to be in or not. But we're doing this for everyone. And we also had to recognize that that this was coming from a place of pain and suffering. But it took us a long time to figure that out.
Yeah. And if that wasn't bad enough, we had conflict amongst ourselves. So amongst the allies on the steering committee and even within the representative plaintiffs. We had 5 representative plaintiffs. And so it got heated and difficult. And you want to say what?
Yeah, there was a lot of drama. And let me see. At the very beginning at our steering committee meeting, the lawyers told us and warned us that this is an abuse lawsuit, a class action, and quite often the steering committee can become dysfunctional. And if it becomes dysfunctional, for the case, like for the sake of the case, we will disband it. And so that's eventually what they had to do. The drama still continued.
Yeah.
But it was less affecting, wasn't taking the lawyer's time, right?
I love that picture. It's just an example of how staged everything was and how happy we were always shown to be at Grenville.
Yeah.
But we didn't get along that well.
I went to normal high school before Grenville, and all of our pictures were just taking pictures. But this is a picture when I was there. Like, they took us out and made us do that several times until they got the right shot, and then not. So, yeah, it was all a big ruse. Yeah. So you need to remember that litigation does not equate to therapy. And so it's like we entered into this, and like I thought myself personally that I'd already dealt with my trauma. Like I told them I was in a cult, I'd been to therapists, I'm good. Like I'm here to help the people who haven't got it all figured out. But what we weren't recognizing was the amount of trauma that came from being involved in the trial process itself. So our recommendation would be like, get involved with a therapist, like from go, just because you're going to need that.
Yeah, well, like if you make it to the end, you're going to need medical proof that you were damaged. So you have to be working with experts who will provide that proof. And looking back, I've just put some of the books and podcasts. There's so many more, but luckily now, thanks to ICSA and so many people in this field, even if you can't afford therapy, you can at least be getting a lot of there are a lot of resources for help and understanding, and that was our job, to keep pointing people in that direction. Yeah,
I think we would have been more vigorous about it had we understood the full extent of it at the beginning.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
But we learned, so we're hoping that'll help you. You need to be prepared that there's a heavy emotional burden. Because as for volunteer therapists, we were directing people towards therapy, but people were coming to us throughout and telling their stories to us. So we didn't just have our stories, we had everybody's stories. And we knew all the stories, and we knew that the stories had to be told to the lawyers in order for the lawyers to be able to include that within the class. But that was a big step for people to make. So it took us about 11 years of telling people how important it was to tell their story and to make sure that
Get it on paper.
Get it on paper. In the end, by the time we got to settlement, there were 375 statements that were actually made. But by the time that we got to statements of damages, over 500 people had put in.
Yeah.
So people, it was hard to do, right? And
yeah, like my brother, for example, has bipolar disorder, and when he finally got his first statement written down, it took him 12 years to write it. He went into a manic state and was incarcerated. Yeah, so it was not an easy thing to get it on paper.
And you need to be prepared for a tidal wave of emotions. Like we kept thinking we've dealt with this, and like all the time people would come in new with more and be as upset as we were at the beginning. We're like, wow, I'm glad I'm not back there anymore. But we were shocked at the amount of times that something would just hit us and trigger us out of the blue and knock us out at the knees.
And sometimes the emotions were good, like that caught us off guard. I'll never forget the first time I heard a lawyer speaking on our behalf. I broke into uncontrollable sobs. Like I couldn't even contain it. And I was trying not to distract from the proceedings. It was that bad. And it took me by surprise. And I just realized the validation was more than I could bear. Like to have someone speaking on our behalf and people listening and taking us seriously. But then all through the years, every time there was a court proceeding coming up, I would become a basket case, and I was always caught off guard by how emotional I was, and I never quite understood it because you don't see the whole impact of of how much something's impacted you. But anyway, if I were giving someone advice, you've got to take time to recover after each event, each proceeding.
Yeah, just plan that. And we didn't do that. We didn't do that well, and we paid for it, right?
Well, we fell apart.
We did.
For me, I fell apart in 2019. That was the year of the trial, and it coincided with me having to withdraw from benzodiazepines. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but going through withdrawal from benzos is incredibly debilitating, and I lost my career. So, yeah.
And for myself, I felt really badly for Beth, but clearly she was way more abused than me, and I wasn't going to run out of steam. So I kept going the way I was going on full speed. And, daughter of 2 doctors, did not know that trauma leaves you susceptible for chronic illness. And when I got my first COVID infection, I was impacted by long COVID, and I'm still trying to crawl out from underneath that.
Yeah.
So it eventually catches up, and
Yeah.
we didn't take the proper care of
Yeah.
ourselves as we went through it.
Yeah.
That we should have. And like the triggering of the court processes, both for you and for others, is going to be very real, and there are very serious and real consequences to that. Writing our statements, we're triggering and upsetting, and it, yeah.
I underestimated the amount of triggering these events would be, and each time a proceeding would happen, I'd be afraid to take time off work, as I said before, and I should have. Then when I got to the trial, I was on the stand for 3 days. And 2 of those days I was under cross-examination, and it was so triggering. I felt like I was right back at the cult, being interrogated, abused, and literally being broken. And I wanted to quit the entire time. And
they like our lawyers couldn't speak to Beth, but they could speak to me. And what they said to me is if Beth doesn't finish her cross-examination, all of her testimony is scrapped. So she must get back on the stand.
Yeah.
And so that was a very difficult time as a friend, because my friend wanted to protect her and take her away from this. But I also knew that she wanted to do this. So I had to encourage her to stay. And it was torturous. Yeah. In addition to that, like people fell apart at every juncture, because every time there would be something happening, we would have a new bunch of media and new people would come in. And over the years, a lot of bad stuff happened. We saw people who triggered and relapsed. We had people who were already involved with addictions who got deeply involved. And I'm looking for a friend right now that I can't find. And as Beth said, people that had mental health crises and end up in mental health wards or incarcerated. And unfortunately, I had a friend who had a vicious traumatic amnesia. And in addition to that, there were unfortunately some suicides that happened. But most tragically was the death of Tim.
Yeah, Tim Blacklock was one of our 5 representative plaintiffs, and he lived in Kingston, Ontario, and he was just about to board the train to go speak at the trial and to testify at the trial, and he died from a fatal heart attack
on the platform coming during the trial. It was shocking, and that was when Beth and I finally took time for ourselves. Like that's when we realized, we stayed for the whole trial after that happened, because we couldn't leave for the sake of Tim.
Yeah. We did have a tiny silver lining in that we realized the justice system is a lot safer than cults. So that actually made me feel better. Even while I was on the stand, I was like, they're doing their jobs and they're gonna, so they know what they're doing.
It's going to end. Like you might feel like it's a light session. It's not a light session, and it's going to end, and you're just going to go on with your life, and they're going to go on with theirs, and it's not going to happen again. Yeah. So the media can be that real double-edged sword, where it can be incredibly validating and incredibly supportive. It was the catalyst in many ways for the lawsuit.
Yeah, but for many, it was too much to be a spokesperson. For me, for sure, and you. We just learned to take background roles, provide background information. I was too much of a basket case until now. This is the first time I'm using my voice in all this time. And we learned that's okay. Some people do like to be in the spotlight, and you got to let them. And you don't, I felt a lot of pressure to be in front of, like, I was always asked to be in interviews, and luckily my therapist was like, no, it's not the right time. So yeah.
And in my case, I was an elementary school principal working within the geographic area that the school still was. And I didn't want everybody to know all of that about me. Like, if I'm talking to a parent, I want them to be talking about their child. I didn't want it to be about Grenville. So, but we gave a lot of information in our own way, and we really did contribute to it. But just
these documentaries, if you're curious, are quite good. And we provided a lot of background info for those. So anyway.
So you also, like, especially in Canada, you cannot expect to make any real financial gain.
Yeah. Sadly, first of all, lawsuits are far too risky for most of us. I personally did not agree to be a representative plaintiff unless we got backed by the Ontario Class Proceedings Fund, and they choose certain lawsuits each year to back, and we went forward and requested their backing. It took them about a year to get back to us, so I lived in limbo at the beginning, wondering if I was actually going to go through with it. But they decided we were in the public's best interest. I think that's how you say it. The interest of the public, to cover us. So if we had lost, they would have paid our fees. Yeah, and when we won, we had to pay them 10% of what our settlement was.
Yeah, and it was worth every penny. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So another piece is that religious abuse is not justiciable. So, the freedom of religions covers a whole lot of sins, and we couldn't sue them on the fact that they were pretending to be the community, like the Anglicans, when they were actually the community of Jesus, and all the lies and deceptions. That wasn't something we could sue them on. We had to find another angle. So we had our lawsuit launched on the fact that they had breached their fiduciary duty towards us as students who were in their care.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's the crux of the problem, is that, when you weaponize religion, you can get away with it. So the other thing we learned at the end was that psychological harm is not well compensated in Canada and any place that has universal health care. They don't deem psychological trauma or abuse to be that bad. Doesn't really affect you, I guess. So if you're sexually abused or physically abused, you get a lot higher payout in these kinds of cases. So that was a blow, because a lot of us, really sustained a ton of damage from the psychological abuse. But it's good to know going in that is not considered what's the word? Valuable.
It can't be your motivator.
Yeah.
That's not gonna, and really it shouldn't be your motivator. But we really tried to make sure people understood that. We'd often joke at the end and say, if we get enough to get a Happy Meal, we'll be happy.
Yeah.
So that was how we kept it light. But we were hoping for more, so that we would be able to, people could get the counseling they needed. But the purpose had to be more than that, because you can't fix trauma with money, right?
Yeah.
And we did.
Yeah.
So the last piece is you need to be prepared to be empowered. Like we look exhausted, and we are, but it's because we've been kicking butt for a while, right? So in retrospect, the risks and challenges using the justice system to hold your abusers accountable can be extremely rewarding. This picture at the bottom was Beth and I at the very beginning for our first court appearance, and then this is the very last day. And I had a
just knowing that we validated our fellow cult survivors, it's just huge. I just felt like I don't know. It's hard to put into words the satisfaction. And then to top it all off, we set legal precedent in Canada, so that was a massive win. And we're having our legal team is regularly being consulted by other law firms across the country to get advice and direction. And
like I had a career as an elementary school principal, and for all the things that I did as a principal, it doesn't stand close to the the sense of I don't want to say pride, but just
Satisfaction.
the satisfaction that this trial brought. I felt I did the most for people in my life through this trial, because the stories began to change. At the beginning, people were afraid, people were, you know, and at the end, we're now getting the stories from people of like, thank you, I get it now. I know why I did this. I know why I did that, and that has just been overwhelming in a positive way.
Yes. I feel the same as her. Me too.
And so at the end, we also tried our best to keep a good sense of humor through it all, and like, it's admittedly a sick sense of humor. Like, you kind of have to have a good sense of humor. So this picture in the upper corner is myself and another one of our representative plaintiffs, Lisa Kavanaugh. And this picture was shown to a woman we knew, and she was told that these are all the souls being burned in hell. Yeah. And this girl was being told she was a whore and was going to burn in hell. So Lisa and I took pictures of the two of us who were also whores burning in hell, and sent that off to her. And nothing big would happen. We'd throw that up on our Facebook and everyone would laugh, right?
Well, the mural was right outside the chapel at Grenville. So I grew up thinking, yeah, we're going right to hell. Like, I walk by the mural, oh, that's hell. You know, like, like, so, and then I don't know if you can see what I'm doing down there, but that I took, my daughter told me to take that picture. I blame. But I took that just a few months ago after my first book signing in the town where Grenville was located. We sold 122 books in a couple hours at that signing, because people really wanted to know the story. So, yeah, and as I said, for the whole story, there's my book, and it's also an audiobook. So if you prefer that,
and we love to talk, as you can tell. So if anyone wants to ask more questions, feel free to ask us. If you see us, that's why we're here.